Below the waters in a Filipino lake was the largest crocodile known to man. He was feared by those who lived on the water and relied on it for their livelihoods. One day, as 12-year-old Rowena Romano was paddling her canoe to school, the enormous crocodile began to trail her. Moments later, he bashed into the side of her canoe, sending the schoolgirl splashing in the water and fighting for her survival. Mehaba Lake is situated inside the Agusan marshland of the southern Philippines. It is part of the 15,000-hectare marshland that is one of the Philippines' most ecologically significant wetlands. The marshland is so big that it holds 15% of the country's fresh water, and it used to be home to a giant. Lurking its murky depths was an enormous saltwater crocodile named Lolong. When crocodiles were hunted for their meat and leather in the marsh, their numbers declined and business for the locals was good. But in 1994, the marsh came under the National Integrated Protected Area System. This ended hunting, and the crocodile numbers flourished. Not only did their population size grow, but so too did their body size. The area in the Philippines is relatively untouched and unspoiled. The habitat is clean and unpolluted, ideal for the crocodiles. Some reported seeing 17-foot, 18-foot crocodiles patrolling the waters, but there was one in particular that became famous. Rightly or wrongly, Lolong was blamed for at least 2 deaths. The first horrific incident was witnessed by others when a schoolgirl was taken by him, and the second involved a fisherman near which Lolong had been spotted moments before the man disappeared. But he wasn't the only crocodile that was threatening the people living on the lake. Hundreds of people live in houseboats on the lake, constructed from wood and thatch. They aren't supported by stilts, but instead bob up and down on the lake's surface and adjust to the seasonal rise and ebb of the water. The people who live there are the Agusan Manobo, some 4,000 indigenous people of the swamp who make a living on the lake. They move across the water in long, dugout canoes, the edges of the boats just inches from the surface of the water. They travel through the waterways and into the center of the lake to fish for carp and collect snails and other marine foods. School children head across to the floating schools. There used to be a time when the crocodiles, thought to be around 5,000 in the area, would swim alongside the canoes. Then, when the locals made loud noises or splashed their oars in the water, they would turn and hurriedly swim away. But now they were less wary of humans. The tribespeople once revered the crocodiles as mystical creatures, but now they feel terrorized by them. For generations, crocodiles were thought to hold the spirits of tribal ancestors, but now that there has been an increase in the number of attacks on people, even the elders are beginning to threaten action. As time has gone on, the crocodiles have come to associate the people with food. No longer do they fear them. They regularly take livestock from the lakeside or from the edges of the houseboats. They have become bold. Some have tasted human flesh. Saltwater crocodiles are notoriously territorial and aggressive. With an increase in human activity in and around the lake, they may see intruders as a threat. They have been known to bump the sides of the canoes, overturning them or crunching their enormous jaws around the sides. Attacks on people are now common, and people fear for their lives. In March 2009, 12-year-old Rowena Romano was heading to her floating school. It was a day like every other. She was following her regular routine and had made the journey hundreds of times before. She had climbed into the dugout canoe with her classmates and was accompanied by a man in another canoe as they paddled away from the houseboats and across the open water. With each stroke of the oar, the vibrations emanated through the water. They were detected by multiple crocodiles lurking nearby. One moved closer to investigate. Whether it was on the hunt for food or acting aggressively to defend its territory, it made a beeline for the 2 youngsters. It approached from behind, a small bow wave in front of its snout, its eyes protruding through the surface of the water and the knobbly skin on its bumpy head and back barely visible. The 2 children saw it approaching and paddled faster. The accompanying man urged them to pull harder on their oars, but the crocodile was fast, able to swim at 15 miles per hour. It could easily outswim the two school children in their canoe. It had learned how to capsize the boats. Many people had lost their lives that way over the past decade or so. The bold predators were clever and cunning. They either leapt out of the water and dragged people from the boats, or knocked them into the water. This crocodile, believed to be Lolong, bumped into the side of the boat. With the canoe so low down to the water, it immediately overturned, and the two school children were sent splashing into the lake. Rowena and her classmate kicked towards the other canoe, desperate to get out of the water before the crocodile came back. But beneath them, the crocodile was heading directly for their legs. It could see the commotion on the surface just feet above it, and it sped upwards. It opened its enormous jaws, and Rowena felt a sharp tug as she was pulled underwater. She let out a shriek as she was taken in the mouth of the giant reptile. Its sharp teeth held her firmly in its grip. The crushing sensation was unbearable, and it felt as though her lungs would burst as she was dragged deeper and deeper into the lake's abyss. It was less than a minute, and she drowned in the crocodile's jaws. Her classmate was hauled into the other boat, and they desperately scanned the water for Rowena, but she was gone. There was no trace of her. The surface of the water was still and calm, as though nothing had ever happened. Following the unbearable tragedy of losing yet another one of their own, the communities along the lake were determined to do something about it. They knew that Lolong was the largest and most ferocious of the crocodiles, and they were hell-bent on finding him. The search continued for days. On the third day, they didn't find the crocodile, and instead they made a gruesome discovery. It was Rowena. Her headless body was found badly mangled amongst the reeds. Finding the young schoolgirl only spurred the residents on to catch the culprit before it could do any more damage. It was a fruitless hunt, and they came up empty-handed. But when a fisherman was taken a couple of years later, thought to be by the same croc, the hunt resumed. The local government of Bunawan town assembled a hunting party. It took 3 weeks before Lolong was captured. Upon capture, he was given his name, which was in memory of one of the trappers who died of a heart attack on the eve of securing the monstrous crocodile. The enormous reptile was transported to a pen in Bunawan. Whilst animal rights activists called for his immediate release, the mayor of Bunawan town, Edwin Cox Ilorde, insisted that the crocodile would be killed by locals if he was returned to the wild. He expressed his interest in creating a crocodile nature reserve to remove some of the largest crocodiles from the lake to keep the people safe. Lolong became an instant celebrity. People came from far and wide to marvel at his immense size. Now that he was secured, he could be formally measured. He came out at 20.24 feet, or 6.17 meters long, which was a new Guinness World Record for the largest saltwater crocodile in captivity. But his stay in captivity would be short-lived. Having spent his 50-year life in the wild, unrestricted and able to exhibit his natural behavior, the confines of his new cage took its toll on him. He developed serious signs of distress, and after just 2 years, died from a combination of stress and a fungal infection that couldn't be treated. Such apex predators aren't designed to live a life behind bars. Instead, perhaps there should be programs that educate people about the invaluable importance of crocodiles to the ecosystem. Whilst he was held in captivity, visitors who came to see him were handed leaflets about the importance of the species and their endangered status in parts of the Philippines. The local government were trying to get the message across, but maybe more should have been done. A conservation project in a place called San Mariano town in the northern Philippines almost lost their population of crocodiles due to harmful fishing methods and active crocodile hunting. But through education and conservation, the population of this iconic species has bounced back. It is possible for people and crocodiles to live side by side. There are talks of creating a crocodile reserve in one section of Mihaba Lake and culling to keep their population numbers more manageable. allowing locals and crocodiles to live within the same environment, without locals fearing any crocodiles bringing them to their terrifying final affliction.